Hello everyone, I am Hayden and this is part 1 of my Introduction to React course. This course will be going through the very basics of React, and at the end of the course you should have the fundamentals of React down and you will be confident enough to go into more serious React projects. So in this video we will be going over how to create a React project, what components are in React, as well as some practice exercises of building React components and how to work multiple components together. Alright, so let's start with creating a React project. So we're gonna use a tool called Vite, and the way we use it is we use command lines. Okay, now don't worry if you haven't had any experience using command lines before. It is pretty simple, at least the ones that we're using today. So the first step is open up your command prompt and navigate to the folder that you want your project to be under. Now you could just do it with a command prompt. So for example, if you just pull out command prompt, and you could theoretically keep CDing until you get there. For reference, if you don't know what CD is change directory. However, I am a bit lazy, so instead go to your file explorer, go to the place that you want your folder to be, and then just right click, show more option, open in terminal, and then that will just help you CD to the appropriate location. Now here's the command that you can use to launch a React project. I wouldn't really recommend remembering the whole thing, just because you don't really use this that often anyways. You really just use it when you create a project. So this first part, npm, is node package manager. So that's just like a library of a bunch of JavaScript stuff. So we're using JavaScript stuff, so that's why we have that. Create a Vite project with the latest version. And then here's the part where you name it whatever you want. So this is like the project name, the folder name that will be holding the projects. So I'm kind of lazy, so let's just do part 1. And then 2 dashes, template, and then React. So let that run for a little bit, it will do its thing, and then bam. Okay, so that's done. So as you can see right here, the folder is now here. So we're gonna CD into part 1. So, and then now it tells you to do npm run npm install. However, I would actually suggest you to do this first. So just do a thing called code and then a period. So if you have VS Code installed, that should open the folder for you in VS Code. So this is the folder, and just for reference, yes, I trust myself. Yes. Okay, so for reference, this is basically just this, right? It's all the files in here in part 1. It just opens it up for you in VS Code. So now we're gonna open up the local terminal here. From here, pull it up, and then bam, you got a little terminal here. So you could have just done everything I'm about to do here as well, like in the PowerShell thing, but let's just do it here because why not? So next up, we're gonna do npm install. So that's just gonna install a bunch of files that you need, like React needs. So let us do this thing. It's gonna take a while, but all right, it is done. Now, last step before we actually get into coding is npm run dev. So npm run dev is just basically one of the things that React can do is called develop, which is basically, you can just think of it as it's just like trying to compile all of the code into an actual working product. So it gives you a little thing here. So by default, Vite kind of just exports it to a local port on 5173. So just click it, and this should be what the browser looks like, right? So this is the default page that Vite already has when you open up a React project with it. So, you got some buttons here. Pretty cool, but this is not what you actually build. I would also suggest you to open this console thing when you code and going forward as well, not just for now. This is basically whenever we're coding, we can actually have the code print something onto the console, and it can really help with debugging. And whenever there are errors, the errors will also pop up here. So definitely have this around when you are testing. All right, so let's start actually modifying the code and not just have it do the default thing. So let's start with app.jsx. So this is a bunch of code, as you can see. And don't worry, you're not supposed to understand what it does just yet. But I'm hoping after a little while, this makes sense to you. So let's Control A, delete all this, and just try to build our own thing really quickly. Right now, I just saved. And a good thing about React is that it actually automatically reloads your stuff whenever you save. So if you go back to the page right now, you will see not everything is gone, because the page was, all the content of the page was from app.jsx, and just because we just deleted it, now it's gone. That makes sense? All right, so let's start up by writing the following. So this is gonna be how we initiate components, right? So const for constant. Always name the main thing of the component as just the name of the class, I would say. Utilizing this capitalization format as well. If you have like, I don't know, let's just say this is called app installer, do like app installer, right? Like make sure you like capitalize the first thing of like of each word. But right now it's just app, so let's just do app. All right, and then equal signs, bracket thing, arrow thing, not this arrow thing, this arrow thing, boom. Okay, so I'm just gonna explain what these parts actually mean real quick. So we're making a constant called app. It's just a component name. And then what does this thing do? It runs a function. So these brackets are actually functions. And so this is just kind of like the function syntax, I guess. And then inside here is what we'll actually have in the function. So we would want it to return something when we run this, right? When we have this component, it should display something. And so what do we want it to display? Well, we're gonna do a little hello world thing. So let's start off with a P. P just stands for paragraph, so that just basically means like a new line. So let's just do hello world here, save, and then as well as we need to export this as well. So export default, cannot spell, export default app. So this is like probably the most fundamental you can get when it comes to Java, for React, JavaScript. So just to summarize what this did, we created a component called app. All it does is it just returns a thing that has a paragraph saying hello world. That's all it does, right? And export default app basically just means that whenever we're trying to use this in another thing, is gonna export this. Sounds good. Now we're gonna jump over to the other class that we have here, main.jsx. So let's delete everything here as well, and let's just write a few lines. Now, firstly, import. If you haven't done anything that requires importing before, just like a little side note, I guess, importing just basically means there are some like libraries out there that has stuff you want, so you just kind of just like import. I mean, it's an English word. You go Google what import means. But you know, just imports them over to the code so that it actually recognizes what it is supposed to do, as well as this dot app. So React DOM is actually a thing that just like React has, so you kind of have to like just import that for React to work properly. It's kind of like it's way too complicated for me to explain here, but it's kind of a like part of the back end that how React handles how to display stuff and stuff. So way too complicated for this introductory course. So just import it. Don't think too much about it. Import app from app. This you do need to know what it does. This basically just imports this guy. So you know how I exported default app here. This imports it, right? So this just kind of takes it back in. And then next line is also pre-default React DOM. I keep spelling it wrong. React DOM dot create root, open brackets, document dot get element by ID, root dot render app. itself as well. No, keep doing that. Close. There you go. So that is basically the whole line. Now let's just check the website and see if it actually has a thing. Oh, there you go. It has a thing now. Lovely. what a very basic thing right there. The amount of effort it took to get this one thing here is kind of ridiculous. But anyways, let's get back to the code and explain what this just did. So this is quite a complicated thing, but what you need to know is basically this line basically just explains to React how to render the content into different div elements. And just to talk a little bit more about debugging before we actually get into problems that would require to actually debug, you could do something like this, for example, console.log, and then just, I don't know, test 1, 2, 3, whatever. So you can have things that print. Console.log is basically, I don't know if you've done other languages that haven't used console.log before. It's basically like the print statement of JSX or JavaScript in general, actually. So when you run this and when you actually check the thing here, you can see it prints it out here as well. So in situations where it is way more complicated and you're not sure what is actually happening or which lines are getting run, stuff like that, you can actually have a console.log line on like multiple lines saying this is line 1, this is line 3, this is line 5 or whatever. And then based on that, you can know where the code actually went wrong, right? Now it's time to do something a little more complicated. Let's try to actually put in some more dynamic stuff into the code. Because right now, as you can see, it's very static, right? It's literally just hello world. You cannot get more static than that. So let's create a new file here. Let's call this clock.jsx. So just like last time, and we will be continuing to do this, so I'm gonna do it a little more faster now. But you just do the same thing, right? Clock equals function thing, arrow thing, curly bracket thing. Okay, so we're gonna create a thing called clock, as well as, before you forget, because you will forget while you haven't done anything yet, just export default clock, put it here first so that wouldn't be a problem in the future. So let's just make a few variables. Let's make a little variable called time now. Make it equal to new date. So date is just kind of a JavaScript thing. It just kind of basically just reads the time. So don't think too much about that. That isn't even React. That's just JavaScript. Constant A is 10. Constant B, set it to like 50. It doesn't really matter. 30, why not? Like, you literally, these are random arbitrary numbers just to show you how to do math in React. So first step, let's do console.log so that we know what we're doing here. Console.log, let's just say time now, and then also A plus B. So what are we expecting it to be displaying here? So it should be displaying the whole, like the very detailed time that's given from date, and as well as 40, right? Makes sense? 30 plus 10. Hopefully you know how to do math. Okay, so I don't know if you've noticed, but all this time we still haven't started the actual return thing yet, right? So like from here, we basically started from return. So now we gotta actually talk about what do we want this clock thing to display. So first thing would be, again, the paragraph thing. So let's just say, hi, the time now is, and then we want this, right? Time now. But we can't just say the time now is time now, because if you just type text in, it's gonna expect it to, like, it'll read it as a text, right? So the way to basically do, instead of just, oh, I want time now, but like I want the value of the variable time now, you do a little curly bracket thing. So you can do time now, But also, just because the formatting issues, it doesn't really work. I'm just gonna tell you right now, it doesn't really work. So let's just say timenow dot to string, and it's a function, so just do that to make it into a string so that it fits the format of everything else. Okay, and let's make another thing here, doing a little math. Now we will be dealing with the red thing later. So again, basically we want to, let's just do a little math saying what a plus b equals, you know, like the a plus b equals 40, right? So let's just print out 10 plus 30 equals 40. Basic math, right? But let's try to do it dynamically. So instead of saying just, you know, 10, we want to get the value from the variable here. So again, whenever you want to get actual like more code-ish things, not just text-based things, you want to do the curly bracket things. So a plus b equals a plus b, just like that, right? So that should work, except there is a teeny tiny issue. Now if you like hover it right there, it says JSX expressions must have one parent element. What does that mean exactly? Well, it means one thing. It means that right now, if you can see, return has two things, right? It has the paragraph and paragraph. And it doesn't like that because for JSX, it has to have one thing encompassing everything. So from its point of view, it is like, I'm just returning one item, and it doesn't matter if that one item has a lot of smaller items inside of it, but I have to have one item that I'm returning. So the solution for this is basically wrap it. People call it wrapping. Well, that's what the industry calls it. It's like a technical term. So you come over to View, Command Palette, wrap it with abbreviation, and just do a thing called div, enter, and that works, right? So it just basically encompasses it in a div. A div, officially, this is once again a HTML thing. It is long for, like, the full name of div is actually division, is like an HTML division tag. But also, a little lazy thing here, going forward, I'm not actually going to do this. I'm actually going to do something else, which is called fragmenting, which is basically, instead of that, you just do this, which also works, and the code compiles no problem. So personally, I just like doing it like this because I'm lazy. I don't like typing div every single time, so I just do that. But you do you, whatever. Both ways work. So you choose your choice. Now let's actually implement the clock thing here, right? So let's come back here. First thing is to actually import clock from clock, right? So right now here inside it doesn't have access to the clock, so we got to import it. And then next up, we actually have to use the clock elements, right? So we already got the hello world here. So if we're gonna add in the clock thing as well, we're gonna have to wrap it. So let's just do that right now. Let's do it like that. Okay, so that's the first. Let's indent it a little. That's hello world, and then we would also want to have the clock element. So let's just do that. Clock, close it, and it will hopefully auto close it for you like that. And that's basically how you use components in other components. So as you can see right now, we have a component called app, and within app, we're using the thing clock. We're using another component called clock. So we save it, go back to the thing. Hopefully it should display. Right. So you got the hello world at the top, as well as hi, the time now is this long giant thing, as well as the math 10 plus 30 equals 40. Lovely. So that worked out really well. As you can see, there's also the print statements here as well. So again, if you need it, use it. And also there's just this little thing here for you to clear the console. So clear it just so you don't have a bunch of things. And especially when there's too many error messages. Actually, I like to just clear it and then just refresh it really quickly for it to just run it like from the top. So these are like the things that you're supposed to actually have, right? So test 1, 2, 3 as well as the whole thing. Sounds good. Now I just showed you how to write another component in a completely different file and then just use it. Let's close that real quick, and then use it in another component, right? Now there's actually another way you could do this. Now I personally don't like it as much, just because I feel like having things separated makes a little more sense and it makes it look cleaner. So like, for example, like if I put everything, like if I could actually put the clock thing, like this whole from here, this whole like constant, this thing, I could actually just throw it into like above here, just put it here, and it would completely work. But I personally don't really like it, just because it feels kind of like, why are you putting everything in one file? Like, bruh. Anyways, I'm gonna show you that just for the sake of showing you that, but personally do not recommend it too much. And while I'm doing this, I'm also gonna show you a slightly more advanced thing. So let's just make a new component called hello. And I don't know if you've noticed, but like so far everything we called it, this is a function, right? But the function so far is not taking in anything, right? These are not taking in anything. Well, sometimes we want things to be even more dynamic, right? Every time we call a clock is gonna be displaying the same thing, but that isn't necessarily what we want every single time, right? So let's say hello, and let's rename this. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but like I'm just gonna call this greetings. Is that how you spell greetings? No, that's not how you spell greetings, bro. I can't do English apparently. Greetings, and this thing actually takes in a variable. So, and let's put in a variable name here called props. We'll deal with, oh wait, sorry, forgot the arrow thing again. Arrow thing, there you go. So, how this works is basically whenever you call greetings, you're gonna also need to provide it with some information, and that information will be used, or I guess might be used, in the actual component. So let's just return a very basic thing. P, let's just say hello, and then we want to put the person's name here. Okay, so let's just say the props actually passes in a name, so we're gonna call props.name. Okay, sounds good. And as you have more and more variables and more parameters, these should be unique, right? So you don't want to have name. You can't have two name parameters, right? Pretty basic coding conventions here. So this doesn't need to be exported because we're working on it locally within the same file. So we can just have a little thing here called greetings. And before we close the bracket, so normally just close the bracket like that, which we could, but we also need to pass in name as well. So let's call name equals Hayden. Hello, that's my name. And then this parameter will be passed in as props.name, passed into here, and then it will just print hello Hayden. So if you go back to the thing, hello Hayden, just like that. And that's how you pass arguments into a component in React. So that is also definitely going to be very important as you progress into more advanced React projects. As I just said, this just uses one argument. Well, what if I want to have two arguments, right? Hello Hayden, you are, let's just say props.age old, years old, right? So this requires another parameter here. So when we call it, we also need to have another argument for it. So let's just call age equals 10. That doesn't work. Why does it not work? Because in this situation, it is wanting the curly bracket things again. And honestly, whenever you have things red, it almost like half the time the solution is just to wrap it with a little curly bracket. I'm not even gonna lie. So if you do that, come back here, right there. Hello Hayden, you are 10 years old. Don't worry, I'm not actually 10 years old. Anyways, so going back to the code, that is basically how you do it. And not only can you put like, you know, a number, you can also do like 10 plus 80 save, and it'll just print, you know, hello Hayden, you're 90 years old. Don't worry, I'm also not 90 years old. Right, you can do some math. You can also, if you're really feeling like it, you know, like make a little variable called, I don't know, don't name it the same thing. I mean, you could, but it's like, it's just confusing. There's a local age and there's like a argument age. I really hate naming things the same. Like technically it does work, but I don't like it. Age num equals 50, and then just put it here, age equals age num, and save it. That also works, right? 50 years old, lovely. Before we jump into the exercises, there's one more thing I want to talk about, and that is a very common error that you pop up whenever you're first starting off, especially when you're first starting off in React, and that error is called objects are not valid as a React child. So I'll first show you how you might run into this bug, and then I can talk about how to deal with it. So let's delete these. Honestly, we don't really need it. Boop. Boop. Okay, so let's say it's very simple. Let's just create a little variable here called friends. Let's make it an array. Okay, and then for each array, there's a thing called name. This guy Hayden, comma age 100. And then let's do the same thing for another thing. 10 years old. Hayden. No, let's not do that. John. Random names for the win. Okay, so let's just say there's two people here, and each of these are, so if you were like normally, if you're like doing normal coding, you might think to access these things as like, I don't know, I want to just print out friends 0 and also like, I don't know, friends 1, right? So like 0-base indexing, a lot of languages you can just access that and it'll just, you know, you just print out name Hayden, age 100, right? You go into the thing and whoops, there's a lot of error codes. So this is the error that I'm talking about here. Objects are not valid as a React child. So what this basically means is React doesn't like what you're trying to make it display, because React doesn't know how to display a whole object. So if you go into like the React, this thing, what it actually received was an object with keys, name, and age. Well, which makes sense, right? You're passing in, basically, you're passing in this whole thing, this thing, and it doesn't like it because it's like, I don't know what that is. So mildly annoying, but React actually only allows you to display primitive stuff. So what does that mean is basically, instead of saying that, you have to say dot name. For example, dot name. That, what would that display? That would display Hayden in one line, and then the next line will be John. That makes sense? Hayden and John. And then, so what if I want the age as well? Well, that's also pretty simple. You just gotta do this. Ideally, give it a little space just to make it look a little nicer. Friends.0.age, and do the same thing for the thing below it. Friends.1.age, and if you check it, it works now, right? And why does it work? Well, because the things inside of the curly brackets is a primitive type, right? what you're trying to tell it print, just the string. Or what is it printing? Just a little integer. So that it can handle. But once you try to get it to print a whole object, it's gonna go haywire. And especially when you're first starting off in React, I feel like you're gonna be bumping into that error. Myself, I've bumped in that error several times when I was first learning about React. And just basically remember, if you see this error saying object are not valid as a React child, that just basically means check what you're actually trying to get React to display and make sure it is actually a primitive type. So that's the end of the teaching portion for this video. So I'm going to give you some instructions on how to proceed with a task, and then I want you to actually try to do it yourself. And after I explain the question, I will also walk you through how you're supposed to tackle the problem. So if you get stuck during the process of trying to do the exercise, you can look at the solution that I provide in the later part of the video. But I would definitely highly recommend you actually try it, okay? You cannot learn coding by just watching someone code. If that's the case, I would be an excellent footballer. Unfortunately, I am not an excellent footballer. So the task is relatively simple because, again, this is literally exercise 1. But I want you to basically restart. So this project, you can just leave it for now. You can have it in the background as an example so that you can, whenever you're lost, you can just check back here to see how you did things here. But basically, what I want you to do is start up a new project and call it course information. And then after you do that, you should go into the main.jsx, set it to look like this, and the app.jsx to look like this. Now, you don't actually need to write out the entire app.jsx because we will be changing it quite significantly. I would actually advise you to not write out the entire app.jsx file like that because as you can see, this whole thing is just in one component. So it's not really very well maintained. So I want you to make this, to refactor the code so that it consists of 3 components, okay? So make 3 files, one call it header, one call it content, and one call total. And by the end, I want the app.jsx file to look like this. And a little hint for the content component, it would be a lot simpler if you made a subcomponent within the content file called part, where you just render each part, and then you can just have like 3 parts inside the content thing. So just to make a little helper component to make your job a little easier. And at the end, your page should look like this. So take your time, pause the video, and if you need to, go back to previous parts of the video to see if you to check out the parts that you forgot about, which I'm sure you will. It is definitely really hard to learn every single thing first try. So don't worry if you have to check back, just go check it, it's fine. I'll be here. And once you're done, or maybe you got stuck for too long and you're too frustrated, don't worry. It is definitely part of the learning experience, and I will show you the full solution of how to approach this problem starting in the next 5 seconds. And if you have been enjoying this video so far, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment if you ever get stuck on anything. I can try to help as well. Let's start the solution part. So I'm gonna be going relatively quickly just because I'm assuming you have already gotten a decent hang of what is supposed to happen. Let's start off by actually creating the project, right? So do the whole command line thing again, just npm vite, npm create vite at latest, give it a name. What name did I say? Course information, course information -- template react. And then that should create the base files that you need. cd into course information, and then do the code dot thing. And then npm install. And while we npm install, we can also delete the CSS files that I mentioned. npm install. So it'll be installing its own thing, so give it a few seconds let's delete the CSS files. CSS files, in case you haven't done any web dev before and you don't know what CSS files are, it's basically just formatting. It basically helps you make your files look good. But right now we're just dealing with literally the most basics of basics. So we don't need that right now. We just need to actually get text to display properly. All right, so that is done. So again, let's just set up the main thing, right? So it's literally just the same thing, right? Just do that. It is literally the same as what we did for the first time round. And for the app thing, also delete everything. And let me just time lapse really quickly so that I get back to a good starting point. Okay, so that's basically the baseline of where you should start off at. And also don't forget, always don't forget, export default app. I swear, I'm not even gonna lie to you. When I was learning React, this little mistake has costed me so much time. It is not even funny. Anyways, let's actually build out the different components now. So the first component should be the easiest one, is the header one. So let's create a new file called header.jsx const header equals bracket arrow thing, and then so we want to return. What do we want it to return? So it's pretty simple. We just want it to return a little header, and we want it to be the course. Now we need something here, but before doing that, always I'm gonna keep saying this, always just put the header export line first. You will forget or else. Okay, so let's see. We need this line basically, right? We want to try to create, okay, well, what we basically want is like a, oh wait, sorry. What we basically want is a, by the way, if you don't know, H1 is just basically, again, HTML formatting for headers. So what we really basically want is, we want this, right? Which basically just prints the word H1 as a header line. Pretty self-explanatory, but we don't want to do it like that. We want to do it as a component. So how will we do that? Well, we basically just need to pass this course thing into header. So set up a little props here, props, and then just say props dot, sorry, forgot my curly brackets, props dot course name. Sure, that works. And then you go back here, and then firstly we got to import header from header, and then we can just do this. Oh, actually we don't even need this. We just gotta do header course name equals, and then pass in course, close that, and bam. So that should display. So just in case you forgot, you should definitely do npm run, can't spell today, npm run dev, just to get yourself the link. So it should be a different link if you haven't closed the old React, like your old VS Code yet, because that one took 5173, so this new one would be 5174. Doesn't really matter, like the number literally doesn't matter. But if you just get it to load for a sec, you'll see right here the header line displays properly. That is good stuff. All right, next part. So that header line worked. So next part, what do we want? We want the content. Content is a bit complicated, so I'm just gonna skip that for now. Let's do the slightly easier one first, which is total. So once again, right click, total. Now remember the titling convention, first letter of the thing should be capitalized, or else some of the names might not work because it conflicts with reserved words in JavaScript or React. So that's definitely no bueno. So that's definitely bad. You don't want that to happen. Anyways, so export default total, as usual, always literally I just export it before I have anything. I feel like that's just good practice, I'm not even gonna lie. So what do we want it to return? So let's build out like what we actually wanted to look at, like as a normal line first. So we wanted to say basically just like number of exercises is, and then basically just like the three things added together. Oh, and also because we have multiple things here, we also need the fragment thing. So let's just add in the fragment thing really quickly. Right, so I'm too lazy. It's basically just like number of exercises is exercise 1 plus exercise 2 plus exercise 3, and that should work, right? So we want that, but we want to do it here. So basically same thing, pass it in as a variable and just basically return brackets and then p number of exercises is, and then props dot 1 plus props dot 2 plus props dot 3, and then save. And then so when we call this, firstly we need to import it first. Import, I already forgot what I named it, total from total. Lovely. So instead of doing this, we can just call header, not header, total, and then close this, but we need 1 equals exercise 1, 2 equals exercise 2, forgot my brackets, and 3 equals exercise 3. Just like that. And that should work. Let's see. Bam, there you go. Number of exercises is 31. Lovely. Alrighty. Now let's get into the hardest one, the most complicated one in my opinion. The content. So once again, content.jsx right here. So how do we do this? Firstly, it's always that, right? Const content. Hopefully by now you start to like find this super easy, because you know, oh my god, what am I doing? You've been doing it so much. Hopefully you find it pretty easy. So let's say props here as well, because you just know we're gonna have to pass in things. So what is gonna happen here? So let's see. Let's close these two as well, just to make it less cluttered. So as I said, we want it to be realistically just, well, firstly let's put in the export line here, just so we can show this more concretely. Export default content. So, and also import content as well. Import content from dot content. It is not letting me auto click just because it is kind of mad at me because of issues over there. It is fine. So what we really want it to look like is just very simply content, and then we want like some variables here, whatever variables here, but like that is the concept, right? So we're gonna pass in some things. What are we actually passing in? Great question. So we can probably just pass it in the most simple way possible. So I'm just gonna be lazy, call it P1. P1 equals part 1. P2 equals part 2, and just keep doing that until we're done passing in all the stuff. Part 3, and then E1 equals exercise 1, E2 equals exercise 2. Finally, E3 equals exercise 3. Boom. Okay. A lot of stuff passed in. Yes, it's still pissed at me for this. So let's deal with this. So as I said, it is probably a good idea to also have some helper things in here as well. So I'm just going to create the helper component really quickly. Constant, let's just call it part, equals. Also, we also need a props here. So all we wanted to display is pretty simple. We just wanted to do a little return p, and then just literally just display part, and then the exercise. Sounds good. And then in here, because we have the helper, now it becomes significantly easier. You can just do part, and then part equals props dot p1. That doesn't work because it's crying. Again, when it's crying, just give it a little bracket. Curly brackets always help. So there you go. That doesn't work. We still forgot about the exercise. Exercise equals bracket thing again. E1 props.e1 E1, and just copy and paste that 2 more times. Oh, I forgot about the thing. We gotta have the we gotta have the fragments as well. So let's do that as well. Or I'm kind of lazy. Let's do it the other way. Command palette, give me the wrap with abbreviation of div. Boom. That also works. And there you go. That should work. Let's see if it worked. It didn't work. Now let's see why did it not work. Now remember to do this. Command Shift I to get this guy. Part is not defined. Did I type it in wrong? Ah. See, you freaking idiot. Props dot part. Gotta love how I'm too used to coding in other languages. Completely forgot about that one. My bad. I'm sure you guys were screaming at me for that one. And there you go. That should have solved it, maybe. And there you go. And that is the end result. That should be what you're able to do. So this little project really demonstrates to you a few things, right? Firstly, how to start up a React project, and then also how to make one component, as well as how to make multiple components that work together in React, as well as how to make the information dynamic so that you can actually pass in information into components. That is a very solid foundation for you to grow off of, to jump off of when you are learning more complex topics. And that will be the end of this first video. I will be making more React videos, one more complex than the next. So if you found this one too easy, maybe jump to the second or third one and see if, and maybe those one will be more your speed. And regardless, if you found this video useful, be sure to subscribe to my channel and leave a comment about how you felt about this course, if the difficulty is too easy, too hard, and if there's anything that you think I should do better when I make my next video. Anyways, thanks for watching until the very end. I'm sure this is probably gonna be like an hour-long video, so I apologize for that. I did not realize it would be this long. If you're interested, go and watch my next React video, or maybe of some of these other videos that YouTube recommends you. But anyways, thanks for staying the whole time. I'll see you in the next video.